네 가장 코란지 가르송슬라는 지가라는 아주 다치 내단라래 지당 아주 센치기 보면서 맞다 기분 왜로 있어라 아니 저도 지도 갈라나 샘티지 바페부로 써야지 개침부러서 문제래라 가리는 아주 샘디 거기는 남라로 사이즈로 직선 구수도 못다나 아니 샘 바페불리 말아 샘 바페 말이나 샘 사이즈 차서는 아주 있다 나에게 시대로도 쫓아라
So then, continuing with the kind of discussion that we were having in the session last night, we had all of us kind of shared our perspective on that question about happiness, and then one of us touched upon how happiness comes from a calm state of the mind. This is also very important because as long as the mind itself is disturbed and agitated, then it is very difficult for us to experience what we call true happiness. And then we realize that the mind becomes agitated and disturbed because the mind is always distracted by sensory experiences and outer conditions. So herein we realize that the calm of the mind that we desire in order to achieve, in order to cultivate true happiness, comes not from running after and becoming agitated by outer conditions. Yes.
제가 가서 저런 데를 생 아주 시대로 대화디 간데 공부를 참에게 빼야고라서라 상당 안 되치니 아니 뒤에 투지체 시당 아니 단다 공주 샘 파페고 뭐야디 아니 대화 시대 뭐야기 지치차기 들라라 제가 다샘 파페고 마요아데 거리 지고라 담무디 하고라 샘 파페고 고 하고나 마우와 친이디 가르래서 티 너스비 건디 바카야 타스당라 근데 이디가라 아니 샘 투에디 갈라나 가지 나초도 시와에는 요모도 손다이자 대차 셰다 공부하지 온도서 시와
So then I was really impressed with the answers and with the perspectives that you shared with the group when we were asked the question, what is happiness? And then it touched upon this point that there needs to be a sense of calm and peace in the mind in order for us to experience true happiness. And so then if we desire such a calm and peaceful state of the mind, then it makes sense for us to investigate what actually disturbs that natural sense of calm and natural sense of peace that we want to experience in our minds. So from the Buddhist perspective, this is a very important question, that what disturbs the natural peace of the mind, what disturbs the natural calm of the mind. And then it is explained to be the disturbing emotions themselves, the afflictions that arise in the mind, that disturbs this natural calm of the mind. Yes.
Geshema timu sota rajil cheuna azse shiwane mtu pena kondo dosha nandu mi papebo ya pojiyo baina ani ko kondo dosha lan sadi gala namdu de mandawa ba tomba mabucha keja samanda sijene shia ani rompa samala tenda me walung la ya ba chi kondo lan sana mi chimba jila kondo la chimba samala lung la shi de chida chena tedegi kondo de pe shu chomboda modeni do.
So then what do we mean by afflictions and disturbing emotions? So the afflictions and disturbing emotions have that quality of disturbing the natural calm of the mind. And we can experience, we all have experiences of these afflictions. So a very kind of evident example is the feeling of anger that develops within us. This is an affliction. And afflictions in themselves, from the Buddhist perspective, are explained to be poisons. And so imagine what will happen if you ingest poison, if there was poison within your system. Then it disturbs the balance, the natural balance of the physical body, and it has a lot of negative consequences. So similarly, whenever these afflictions and disturbing emotions arise in us, such an anger, then it disturbs the natural calm of the mind. It manifests itself in unwise and foolish behavior, and as a result of which it has a lot of negative consequences. So think about anger and how it affects us. It could be that normally the person is a very calm, collected person, but as soon as anger arises in that person's mind, then physically it has consequences, mentally it has consequences. Physically it manifests itself in the form of the person's appearance. He is no longer smiling, he becomes he looks very violent physically, and then in his relationships and interactions with other people, he does not make the best decisions. He further strains relationships and so forth. So this is the reason why afflictions are looked at as poisons from the Buddhist perspective. Thus.
Nani kundu di chembe ani nganzu pena kala shimbuji sana thoya mara kundu la za tikala yela nganzu kala do sa thadi do di poru mi jilung lana kala de la thoya me bache ani chi ni ku gu sana gonda ni ya bu kudu mara tende ta poru kundu do langa de kali zobul ne ta nganzu zobul choya ki do immune system la da tan samal ne jin do do cheza tende yin ne jin di ha go na ani ta pangai thastangura.
So then when we look at anger and how it affects us, then if we are consumed by anger, we cannot enjoy the food that we are eating. Then we have trouble sleeping, and then as a result of which our whole immune system begins to suffer. These are the kind of physical effects of anger. And when you begin to realize these kind of defects or negative consequences of anger, then it makes sense for us to try to overcome this anger. And from the Buddhist perspective, we are encouraged to work towards abandoning these afflictions.
콩로 가시기 밀어봐 콩로라니 큰일로 투어 미직 콩로란 들어봐 직직 나볼라 투어다 봐 슈투어다 근데 제외는 다른 게 전사에게 단도 뜻 동문에 가라 그래도 노고라 이라 세상에도 단도 다른 게뭐 가시 단도 들 가와 가지 않게 봐 지체도 좀 뜻 동문이를 보고 기워라 계속 kop하게 동투네 지 슈투 세도 같이 정말 스스로 진들에 있는 팀토로 도는 정한도 거야 되고 이래 하기도 섭정부처는 스스로 이미도 종선의 수수수 디파 섭정부 사이라 아니 예 신의 녀를 도고 해 되게 아니 오늘 이미도 상황에는 그 넘버 단지니 디주 제무로 해야 되다 봐.
So then it is explained that in samsaric existence, even though we do desire and want happiness for ourselves, but due to our ignorance and delusions, we keep accumulating the causes and conditions for us to suffer. This is very important, because unless and until we do not recognize suffering as it is, then we keep accumulating the causes and conditions for us to suffer more. So, for example, staying close with the example of anger. So, if someone acts aggressively towards you, or someone does something to you that you do not like, then our kind of immediate reaction is to retaliate, or in worst cases we think about revenge and all these things, and then we actually engage in retaliating immediately, or trying to avenge some sort of slight or some sort of aggressive behavior. And we think that if we are able to do such a thing, then our initial sense of disturbance will be overcome. This is an example of us being ignorant of what suffering really is. So we need to always realistically investigate and contemplate on the nature of these afflictions and how they manifest themselves in our behavior, and how behavior motivated by such afflictions have negative consequences in all in all the way that it manifests itself. For example, if you think that by retaliating and by avenging something that was done to you, then if you think that will give you a sense of calm, then this is totally wrong. Because one, if someone acts aggressively towards you and you immediately retaliate by hitting that person, so on, so on and so forth, then there is the legal aspect too, first, and more importantly, it creates resentment between you and the other person, and it makes an already worse situation even worse, already bad situation even worse. And from the Buddhist perspective, it is explained that due to such non-virtuous acts, you accumulate the causes and conditions for you to suffer more, not just in this life, but even in the next life.
제가 다 콘도디 메메 바람에 버서더라. 잠자 밀바 쉬에 들으는 밀에 세뚜는 딜레 찍지라 디 콘도돌이다. 잠자 수수 콘도라디가 소수수 가시 다 나지가 가시저로 리로 아니 이마들 페지어라 이마 근데 우성다 미치 모터스 모터 코라 모터 있나 가리나 다는 모터스 있어라 모터스도 모터 원래 직 yin takilo ina go guguchi na kanda laga do chi digal pungo di yegi di morai koran go di ke sa kedi ko lung lan tando yanje dam dab leida tadi tando koran dur na sa tangro chedan di ta di kondo le ora de per percent ro chi ta ngara zo zam zo chi da kondo lam go le yanje chi marin tando di le ya chala cha do da chi na ko le dam leida.
So then it is very important for us to recognize that anger directed towards others, directed towards ourselves, is not an effective way, not an effective way to make sense of reality. For example, His Holiness the Dalai Lama recounts this story that when he was in Tibet, there was only a few cars in Tibet, and there was a person who used to kind of repair these cars. So then, one day while he was working on a car, he was under the car and working on the engine and stuff. And then, when he was working under the bonnet of the car, then he accidentally hit his head on the somewhere under the car, and then out of anger he immediately hit his head again on the car. And this kind of example highlights the fact that how anger is not a sensible reaction, because even in its most innocent form we realize that it does not come from a place of wisdom at all. And so similarly, even if it manifests itself in such an innocent manner, we look to suffer as a consequence of that. So it is similar in the way that anger manifests itself in all forms. It always has a negative consequence.
Today dita ngazoge ching nasyo thola shine sidele samde ora nachi jibo mara mi samai shiden de dewa la ni kara sem matu senlele go ta selele go na kari go dan da kondo shida kondo su pambala ra ta ti pangla ta kondo de yamo mu de pangula chanchi diwo mara ti ani khandes ka pangwe jinse khar ngol ne go de shule ne go de ran ne go de shenle ne go de mambu ji ne je la dan ra 아니 다네 빵비 탑도다 다스나는 뭐지 땅디가라 쇼니 산단다 건나바다지 풀런데 봐 센들런데 봐 시발런데 봐 뭐지 산단다 빵 거야 돼 그라 다나 빵 거는 간데 빵다 그라 안 근데 이제 비컬래 내가라 맞아 근데 젠테디가라 저보고 그라 됐대 진짜 개마르산 산을 제쳐보다 디 콘도도 라마죠 계시 콘도 나서기 미디네 디기틸 다버스 텐데네 콘도만 마라이다 됐지 봐 잠잠 타미 봐 인자
So then, now we realize that in order for us to be calm and to be peaceful in our state of mind, then we need to overcome these afflictions that arise in our minds. And now, not when we say that we need to overcome and abandon these afflictions, then just saying that, oh, I need to abandon and overcome these afflictions does not work. First, you need to have a conviction that indeed these afflictions that arise in our minds and manifest itself in our action and speech indeed are something that does not serve me well. So then when you have this conviction, then you realize the purpose of abandoning these afflictions. And now realizing the purpose and having the conviction to overcome and abandon these afflictions in itself is not sufficient. You actually need a method with which you can look to overcome and abandon these afflictions. So this is the manner in which Buddhism looks at the afflictions, the disturbing emotions in our mind streams. So as a method to overcome an affliction such as anger, then we talk about how we can use what we call antidotes, in a sense, our methods to overcome anger, such as cultivating an attitude of patience, forbearance, and so forth. And as a beginner, it is impossible for us to practice forbearance or patience in the face of aggression and transgression. So it makes sense for us to kind of take it one step at a time and to try to not always place yourself in front of someone who irritates and angers you.
세상 내가 나시기 다른 저기 차바돼야 되거라. 배나 너주 조시에는 그 조시버 인자디가라 차발라디가라 지당한테 차발래 갈라나 봐. 유 유동 온셀인데 버지래 따고라. 난 잠잠 아주 빼 명함로 지기요. 나 단도고 체메 버지네 아니 딱 너바 카이면은 될래 센나메 데왈리에 뭐라. 다리베는 자자고는 고무도 샤라 자라고 섬나 자라바이나 산이안 동라 나니 티라 밤라 아니 파기래 렌드 쳇다 삼말려 온다 근데 인자냐 센트 호치 난 지바지냐스다 라 이 콘도 투고나 생기 다이 센르레데 메바샤르다.
So then now we realize that the Buddhist definition of afflictions as having that quality of disturbing the natural calm of the mind is true. As we now realize anger does exactly that. Then when we're talking about other afflictions such as attachment, then it's similar. The way these afflictions function is to disturb the natural calm of the mind. And now when we look at attachment, it is defined as that mental factor that exaggerates the appeal and the quality of the object of desire, wherein these kind of appeal and qualities are not evident or not existent in the object itself, but we kind of superimpose and project these qualities, these exaggerated qualities and appeal onto the object. So when we do that, then it gives rise to greed and more desire, more want. So it is evident in the way that we relate to money. We think that if I'm able to save or these amount of money, then I would be happy. But once you have, let's say, $1,000, you need 10,000, 100,000, then more. It's endless in this manner. Then you are always pursuing or running after that kind of in order to feed that kind of greed and attachment. So we can apply it to any object of desire. Now, when we're talking about material possessions now, then think about how before, a desire or an attachment arises in you to acquire an object of desire, then the mind isn't particularly concerned with that object, and it is not particularly disturbed by that object of desire. But once you develop that desire and attachment towards material possession, then your whole mind, mental as well as physical effort is kind of focused towards acquiring that object of desire. And then in the process, not only attachment increases as a result of that, it serves as the basis for many other afflictions to arise. For example, anger to arise when something does not go right in the process of acquiring it, and so forth. So this is the manner in which the afflictions affect and manifest themselves in our behavior and in the things that we do in our life. So then these very object of desires that we hold to be so precious, sometimes when we think about like people acquiring a lot of money, jewelry, gold, and so forth, but and from another perspective, when you look at it, then these very kind of object of desires that we so hold precious actually puts us in the danger of sometimes losing our life because other people become jealous, envious of these kind of material possessions, and sometimes, indeed, it is the case that your own life is at risk because you hold these things so close and dear for yourselves. Yes. So then to kind of explore this further, let's say that you have a bag full of money and you are traveling around in Delhi, a very crowded place, and then imagine your state of mind, even if you have to go to the washroom, how stressful it is. And where does this stress come from? This stress comes from the fact that you have placed so much value and attachment onto that object of desire, which is that that bag full of money. So this is very evident. For example, rather than that, if you just carry just the amount of money that you need, then you can put it in a small purse or a wallet, and then you can move about freely wherever you want to. But if you have that bag full of money, then you are fearful of even traveling freely. You don't want to leave the bag full of money behind, and so there's a lot of stress, and it actually kind of restricts your freedom in a way. So then when we look at attachment and how it affects our behavior, our attitudes, and so forth, then we realize that we tend to develop attachment towards what we call our own, and what we call our own. For example, you begin to develop attachment towards something that you call your own, and then you extend it towards your friends, your family, and then you extend it towards your community, your society, and so forth. And this comes because we begin to identify ourselves along the differences of self and others, and as a result of which we develop attachment towards what we consider to be our own, and then we begin to develop aversion towards what we consider not our own, someone else's. So this is the manner in which attachment also forms the basis upon which we develop aversion towards what is not our own. Yes.
Talking about these material aspects and going to the teaching yesterday about being content, I wonder how would be a skillful way to work with contentment, but also with ambition. Because sometimes when you are ambitious about improving your material aspects, it's because you are discontent with what you have. So I was wondering what are Geshema's maybe advice about how to be driven of like kind of trying to improve things in your life, but with contentment at the same time, or maybe gratitude with what you already have.
Tene moi dila ita na zu chingo ge junor sangsing ilangjo de zokola shede ras. Tilo shede de zaman khasang anzu ge digital bola ne dujung chokshe bole shede pekechim bole song ras. Tenyam do ne ina de sangi ji da chizo bi doda mi gi doda la ras. Ne chingo dila yarje menasra ani tis khaboy ras. 칭오부 디 소소 지조기 지조디 강가 야르제도 소소 야르제 만도나 텔라야 이미체 마도 실리기도 왔어. 소소 셈바 미셈바 시차기도 왔어. 제가 디 야르제다기 데바지 치기도 왔어. 디 당한속이 오텐데도 아니 간이 망못하기로 왔어. 제가 아니 이나야는 촉시바 버를 송교로 왔어. 근데 제가 다 촉시바 여신도스라 야제 조약이 소소라 yarje tangwe yarje droye ki dende nimigyu droye ra o dende ni di ta kan des songde chin ko res
ta ngang zu chok shepa la de ngang zu tanda ji junno long je la chachen de ji je ma la zaw ning go mar shi thwa ma ra chok shepa la de ye go re go je de le tsele ge ba ma ra chok shepa la de ji yo go ma do je me na ngang zu chok she tanga dis la de de ba tsin ye jo ma ra go re ke cham bo re ngang zu sa na tu na nu de sam 땡고라 시촌나는 고도 대사사사 통서 둘로 삼아 고거래 이내 잠도 아주 총 마시면 퇴바지 근데 지워라 라 다디 소소기 지난 사야 또 소소기지 니마니마 저지 고거데 디두네 두다지라 라 지기 로초마이게 짱마신 소리가 그다보다 제tam부란시 근데 사야라 라 지금 맞아 잡아줘 들려마이게 양앞에 양암침부터 파게 밀려 nhập 주시 들려마이게 so
then it is very important to understand what exactly is contentment and how how do we develop a sense of contentment. So in order for such a sense of contentment to arise in us, we need to have something first. If you have nothing, there is no sense of contentment particularly. So then now with regards to material possessions and material necessities and comfort, then we are not saying that you need to do away with all these material comfort, material necessity and material possessions at all. We are saying that you need to be content. There needs to be a sense of contentment when your material necessities are met, such as the basic necessity of food, shelter, and so forth. And we need this kind of things as human beings to sustain ourselves. And now, in the modern day and age, this makes even more sense that we at least take care of the basic necessities. And this is what we mean by contentment. To be content that you have a roof over your head, you have food to eat. This is what we mean. Now, when we stress the importance of contentment, we begin to develop a desire and attachment which extends far beyond these kind of basic necessities being taken care of. And not only that, as a result of that, then we begin to engage in wrong means to acquire what we want for ourselves. And we begin to exploit other people's labor, other people's effort, and so forth, in order for us to acquire these things. So this is what we mean by lack of contentment. It all comes from a lack of contentment with the basic necessities being met.
배낭아도 촌바로지나라 상하로 있는 촌바 있는 그 공세지 뜻을 계산도 그래 깔레제비 소스 깔레제비 켈라로지레마도 디가라 토바토바니 더블 니바 숨바는 랭고마라 라 답변은 지난 상한로면서 잘라도 녀와도 우리 칼라 소고레 쇼깅하고는 내가 저거 대 남디 칼라 딜레테 지 공켈렌 첼렌에 디고 칼라 소스 깔레제라 다 변는 남디 고무 또 상한데레 변나 지 칼레지레 고무제다 납주로지나 근데 로지기 치 뜻을 깔레제도 사무선 된도게나 되지 내라 소스 깔레제라 다 디가래 퇴버치네 아니 변에 고무지자 가자도네 라 디가다 티니지도 테샤이르데 코디가 펫셀게 버지 사자라 네 마이게라 다디 페션도시 다빠도게네
So then maybe it is better if we explore this with an example. So a person who has a business, who is operating a business, or let's say who is operating a business in a restaurant. So then the whole purpose of business is to gain profits. Now even in that instance, there is one can cultivate a sense of contentment, and there needs to be a sense of contentment because if the kind of profit that you are looking to gain from your business is not commensurate with the kind of effort that you put into your product, then it doesn't make sense. For example, in a restaurant, if it makes sense for you to charge, let's say 150 rupees for a meal, but out of your greed you begin to charge 400, 500 rupees for that meal, then it is not quite an ethical way to earn a living. So this is what we mean by contentment. Even in the pursuit of profit, you can cultivate a sense of contentment. Yes.
결혼되기 되게 능엄서 전부 채워라 때네 상하는 팀도 미디pen 고무제랑 아주 저기 잘라져 시장 하잖아요. 테마집도 배지 요거만 라네 하고도 그러. 제가 내가 나서 손바로지네 직 딜리다 딱 가서 갈 잘라가리 직 데려둔 칸에 다른 켈리게네 총하로 수니랑게 총하지 수이나. 다딜레 직 소소파기 다른 분 칼리제다 밀라 땅고인다 마음부지 채우라. 내가 선다 네가 저라고 뭔가를 좀 가리나라. 되는데 선디고. 다 베드 코르치 겐 더블로니로 손벌레나. 디디 야야 오마라. 다데 로치감 당함라디ገል라.
So I think with this example now it makes sense that cultivating a sense of contentment is very important, because unless and until we do not have cultivate a sense of contentment, then we kind of forget to live through ethical means, and then we begin to exploit other people, and we begin to employ wrong means to achieve profits and gains and so forth. So for example, if like taking into the effort, logistical expenditure and everything into account, and if it makes sense for you to charge 150 rupees, then it's an ethical means of earning that profit. But if out of greed because you are not content, then you begin to charge 400, double the money for that same product. Then even if someone comes to buy that product once, but after a while they will come to realize that you are overcharging And then that's not the way to do business in the first place. So this is why contentment in all facets of life is very important.
Chizan dile ide nga zo kari ina junul go de so chambu ra chada ujira di che go chik che ta ta nga zo ge dile ma ran shu la cha ko la di su su nyen ni de la cha ni ya pha yi mi shi ba dra sa chi do dra sa na pe ma mi chik la sa na ko le ya pe da pin ya da di yo ra di zo la yo ani ya ko ra ge pha yi chi ba ina lum ba chi ba ina de ne ya ko ra ge chu ba chi ba ina ani pha yi je kap chi ba ina ma bu ko la le da ra de ne ni ani chik da ma do ya de de nga da.
So then another kind of particular point we need to discuss with regards to attachment as an affliction is the way it fosters aversion towards what we think or what we say is not our own. For example, due to developing strong attachment towards what we call our own family, our own friends, our own community, then as a result of that we begin to develop strong dislike, strong aversion towards other communities, towards other people. So where all of this comes from a strong attachment towards what we call our own family, our own circle, our own community. And if our actions and interactions with other community, other people are informed by such a strong sense of attachment, then it might be the case that due to being too attached towards your own circle of friends, immediate surrounding, then you begin to inflict harm upon other people. And when you begin to inflict harm on other people, the other community, other circle of people, they have the same sense of attachment towards their own people. As a result of it, they retaliate. And this is the manner in which attachment, even when we think that we are only becoming attached to our own circle of friends and so forth, serves as the basis of fostering hatred, dislike, and aversion to what we think is someone else's community and so forth.
Chizan dinde ide nga zo chambu ro thwe de peke chambu ra suzuki pempinya da phama da suzuki thanya sa ge tu ne ge na thanya bu no chu chi chi ne no tu no tu ba tu ji go da a nga zo de la no tu ya mar tsama tsanya da phashe de tsama no tu dinde china ya mu da ra chizan nga zo su de transho to chambu le na ani on de shi de ne ya we ya ji ta chik cha wo.
So this kind of we invite this kind of trouble because of the way attachment functions. For example, when we become too attached with the idea of who we are or who our community is, then we dispense with a realistic approach altogether, because we say that even if our own friends, even if our own communities are at fault, then just because of out of a sense of allegiance or a sense of attachment, we kind of completely disregard that and saying that, oh, he's my friend. We ignore that and we don't take that into account. And whereas if someone else does the same thing, then we begin to become angry and so forth. So that's why it kind of robs attachment, strong attachment kind of robs us of the ability to judge things realistically, judge things without bias.
Chezang da dinde indi ga la ra da zo kal la sna chi kondo gi yimi de da na chana de ha ko sa ya la ra de cha de che tanda ga de cha da kondo ni ja usa dia pu dia mari bal to ra mari be mo be wa ma hi wa ra lo pa zen ba ji ra ma hi ba ji o da ma di su nya ka de cha su sa do so jono lo ji che ge ba ji sa to da ka tu ji le ji di we na ko no de ra che de mari ba che de cha she da kar sa.
So then I hope that in this kind of extensive discussion about the two afflictions, you are able to now understand the manner in which we can begin to contemplate the negative consequences of these afflictions. Now, the third affliction, anger, the third affliction, ignorance, is explained to be the root of all afflictions. So when we look at both anger and attachment, then it stems from a wrong idea or from a wrong view of reality. So this is why ignorance is at the root of all afflictions. Ignorance permeates all afflictions.
tanda nga tsu yi tup le de nga tsu tu tu na da nga shi gi re tu le de nga tsu tsu go ra tanda nga tsu ngune ngo se tabu ge ma thong wei na ya tanda cha dang mo tu le nga tsa do ra tu tu wei na tanda nga ra tsu ge de lu de tu ra do shi do na da da de yu re ma do kyo shi mo ko shi ra di chi tu ma ra ta tanda de she shi na de mu du nga tsu ha go ma re ma do che de zan ma tsu kyo shi ma ke len ji na kyo shi ma nga so do ye nga tsu ju sa yu ra che so de nga tsa.
So then, when the Buddhists call the affliction poison, then there is a reason why we call these poison, because from the Buddhist perspective, from one point of view, it is even considered more dangerous and much more harmful than the actual poison that we find in the world. For example, if you consume poison, then at the worst from the Buddhist perspective, your physical form begins to suffer, your physical body begins to suffer as a result of consuming poison. But these poisonous afflictions, if we are always kind of caught up in these poisonous afflictions, it not only affects our physical bodies and the kind of behaviors and attitudes, it also affects the mind in itself. The mind in itself, as a result of which it leaves karmic imprints, and as a result of which you accumulate the causes and conditions to suffer more in your next and in the future, as well as in the next life. So this is why the Buddhists make it a point to describe the afflictions as poisons.
그래서 아니 저런들들이 공도에 강이 티에도 총수야 총유 그래 무슨 문제나 다시 당하는 드디 오가 근데 이게 뭐 총수다 같이 매래 기승이 뭐 제에는 다 수수기 바빵 거야로 그래 아직니 땅아 뭐 지기 매래네 양 수수기야 다 컬러다 담자로 샤야라.
So then, have any of you ever had such an experience of these afflictions affecting the way that you behave, you think, and you speak? Has it ever manifested in your behaviors? I think it is important to ask these questions for ourselves, that indeed many of my behaviors, many of my actions, many of my speech have indeed been informed by anger and the other afflictions, and to be able to see like what kind of consequence you experience.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's funny. I know a lot of people around me have issues with anger. Specifically, I think I overcame it when I was a kid. But I see, like, one funny example is to see how this is my first visit in India, in the East in general, and you know how when you travel in Europe, you put your bag to the plane, you're checking the plane, you don't worry about it. For sure it's gonna be in the destination. And here I felt like fear when I checked in the bag and sent it away because I had maybe trouble communicating with the people and stuff. So I was fearful of losing the big bag, like what I'm gonna do in the retreat, that no toiletries, no clothes. And now when you guys, when we were talking about those things, the attachment to these worldly things kind of like reveals itself, and it makes me smile because I was able to calm my mind at that time, it was 2 days ago, and say to myself that I can make do without them, and it's just nice to reflect on this. my mind at least, and how I can. Um, I mean, you can't really, I guess, be free of attachment. So, I'm amazed of is that I can see the attachment, and sometimes at least be able to free myself from the attachment, or at least not suffer from the attachment.
Tene Kurang di lagi tu chidang ne di tsu jaga la tanda yongwa yora shar cho la yongwa tenpa thangpo yins. Ane Kurang chunju ne tsardu zaman ne Kurang ki koryo di la mi mangcheb la kongro ki kanyi di yoris. Ane pugu chunju ne achimbo chadu zama kongro kanyi shuk chimbo yoris ra. Ane da Kurang tanda tsu jaga la yongdu zamba ane nisu disi yam tsembo do chik nisu la na kalor. Dende yam tsembo do chik nyongwa chongsons. Kaina na Kuranzo Europe chola de zamba namthang judu namru nongla chala ma zoya tangya. Tezi zamba dende misi chi semde do chego maris. Kajana na ichilo ige do chiyoris. Chala tata pal digirilane. Ta ina jagala tsu yung de zamba tis ngamda do chesons. Chala di takda chigi na kigi mena samsam do ya. Sem nala ngamda da tis jingna do chik chesons. Ene samla yago tang de zamba kharja ngamda da jingna chigi yoris samtang de zamba pigi nonglo de la ni ngagi chala mango chiyoras. Chik thulo da oda, ani susu kwe koda odende, so tuwe da oda, chik yizi da odende yor. Tela ani nga sem chakba da ochi chini, ani nga sem dis tsabzab ngamda chato as. Ti samla samdang di zamba ani dis gemo da ochosons. Jene ani karing muzi, jene ani oda di mena e chi dusa mare la echara. Di nima nisu nga res, kuna namdang e tsuyong di zamba. Ani oti di zamba, nisu di chung di zamba ani, oda chakwa la duchak la di dabe tajik ne bet pang dende chema tu na isra duchak la di kap kap la ngwe zin tu do as ngwe zin tu na sra ani chik duchak gi wang do shukshin bo do mi do as da di duchak ri chi che sa na di sim nam da chi ge la samba kap kap la ni duchak ngwe zin tu na ko duchak gi wang la pha tu mi dos oti thona chosos
re di apo de mus chisa nga so mambo chi mus sing ma de ra chisa dewan de jen tim dungi ni le ngoba ju de dira dewan de wo de dewa de hang ma dungi ni le ngoba ju chisa zam zam de le zam do digal chu chu ji sam ta wa ina jala ro la wa ina da kyaw hama nga ra chi ki phune ro go pa hma sha ne ya shi ra ma ra na da di ga ra gi de senten la den ra ni me ra tabshi tang ko da su su ra mi hagila le ga chi ni la pon tan de wa che de ji ra tabshi tang ta tham ma ra na 딜레 주버제 방세지 되는 주요마라 다 지키 미지라니 지심바들 펜토 쇼 사면도다 아니 인겨 망아랑 미신 바라더니 분연도 고인게래 사면도 라 파짐바 파땅선에 야실루 땅땅주라 이내야 담보니 다시 마다네 다가지 샬라오마 다시 따해라 한 다시 나 타마다시 말한다 주버제 들 선된도 마버체네 주요마라 페나가서 준주나요 티 kete chus inani tela magaji kete chus minan tela magaji kesi chuna raya ki tabshi tani raya ji yo bayi tabshi tani kesi raya mindu ta tiga la sende lan tene chus me bayi na tela chirangi sete jine pen to ke yo ma resu madra udizu sama tata rhele
So this is a very important point that you shared that when you are able to recognize that indeed the mind becomes fearful, anxious because of attachment to a particular thing, then it is very important and an effective technique to recognize that at times. If we're able to recognize that, then we begin to understand where does these kind of emotions of anxiety, fear, and so forth, which are not pleasant emotions, come from. So, in essence, that is what suffering is. And this is the reason why we stress the point that the Buddhists stress the point that even wanting happiness due to ignorance and delusion, we begin to accumulate the causes for suffering. And for example, now in your case, if worse came to worse, you would have lost that back. And but due to due to the strong attachment towards your luggage to that bag, then you close your mind towards the possibilities of reality, which is that it might be indeed the case that the bag might be lost sometimes. And when you do that, then you always, in your mind, it has to be absolutely the case that when you when you deplane that the bag must be there. And then if it is not there, you are always setting yourselves up for great regret, great disappointment. Why? Because you fail to take into account the possibilities of reality. So, and then if one takes into account everything, the possibilities of reality, then it doesn't mean that you just leave everything as it is. It means that you do what is possible to get the bag if you can find it. But if not, then it is a possibility of reality that you might never find it again. So tying into connecting with that point, then the great master Shantidewa, he makes a point that if something cannot be remedied, why worry about it? And if something can indeed be remedied, then why be worried about it? Because that's the most realistic attitude one can one can adopt with regards to anything. So this is very important. Kwalada mesir. Did you lose your bag? No, right?
아니 가서 미 지에 고지 패신 점도 근데 콘도 되는 말은 잘라 뭐 키우다 둘로로다 제로 지금 뭐 보지도 다 콘도 아주 릴 나더라 릴 배창가요 다 콘도 가싱에는 얘기들이 릴 기군요 기군은 잘라도 백지 된 바타야 봐 나랑 절라 추주지 봐요 디나 바쿠요 바쿠 찍들래 데라 아이패드요 아니 가바디 잡로기 디 칼로 백은 절라 추주지도 디나 샤 티나로도 내 잘라도 노로 제로 빠치디가 미치기에 쿠마제다 그 자가도 코는다 티레 디나로라 드네 모드도 숄더 콘리도 콘 페참보다 아래로 신 아래 올레네 그거다 드레신데 이게 키샤 팅예로 빠치기 춘 저라 카츠피도 달아 니 따라 잘라시 뭐도 폰데 키사시 다폰 카투 따는 게 린던 베 손셔로 춘주시 카샤 고음도 심바이는데 라이라 테니 고마슬 주고 하고 되네 스타샤샤 대 police number of phone time 이제 혼자 싫어 지도 말 가서 가서 막 돈이라 막 돈들이가 계속 받치 투는 안 담보들다 아트 스강이로다 미 디는 저저 참아다 디니래 말로 좀 말더니 아샹다 참 당아델레 송들 라오라 딜라사요 말에 되네 표현만 되어 쳐서 딱 같이 참아디네요라 아니 디스강이로지 직선반 디스 지금 릉라니로 지기다 아디 가르친 그거에는 도체 근데 봐 안다 캐머는 산에 찍다나 캐머스라 코나 폰고니 지게 나가라 사와치니 디 가방한테 참아 주 줘다야도 나로라 카레 이네 참아 폰셔만 쓰라야줘도 그래서 제가 디 베도 거라 땅셔 바라야 탑셔 담이 쓰지야 담이 심바야 police는 폰다 찍서서 있어라
So then even as an ordained spiritual practitioner, we are not free from feeling the same type of frustration. And for example, I have an experience like that. Back in the days when we were traveling, when we were traveling to South India, then we were a huge group with a lot of elderly nuns with us. So then, since we were going to the south for quite a bit of time, then they carried a lot of luggage with them. So as young nuns, we kind of took it upon ourselves to kind of take care of their luggage, like putting it on the train and so forth. So when we were boarding the train, the young nuns, all of us, we were like taking care of the elder nuns and their luggage, making sure that all of them were on the train as well as their luggage. And so in the process, I had a small bag, and I left my bag in the train. And so as I was busy and caught up with helping the elder nuns and with their luggage and so forth, then someone said that I had kept an iPad in the bag, and on the front pocket, I kept my phone. And then one of the nuns said, like, your bag, the front porch, the zip is open. And then as I looked into the phone, as I looked at my bag, then I realized that my phone had been stolen. So when a train stops at a station in India, a lot of people get on the train, and there are many people who kind of do this kind of stuffs, wearing shawls, and then like they pickpocket. So then, as I realized that my phone was stolen, then I felt a strong sense of frustration. Now, and then I also thought of calling the police and so forth. But then I realized that I'm traveling to the south. It doesn't make sense for me to call a local police where I wouldn't be in that place at all. And then I needed that phone. I needed that phone to contact the relevant people in the south, as well as to keep in touch with my family in Tibet. And then even I, an ordained spiritual practitioner, begin to feel frustrated because I have lost this phone. But then I realized that I feel this frustration not because I have lost the phone, because uh, I cannot now stay in contact or contact the relevant people in the south and stay in contact with my family in Tibet. Then I realized that this is not tied to that particular phone. This frustration is because I'm not able to do all these things that I normally do with my phone. So I realized that, and then I thought, if I can buy a new phone and I can keep contacting my family in Tibet and so forth. So when you do that, then the frustration is naturally overcome.
시장은 좀 강이 치디 럽랑아 지치네 제일 상이 바숨 바타이라 계시 근데 강이 가르치어네 어 단 폰으로 라인 어 심바마라 오즈르사이로 나 심바치 락퍼로 감바로 슈침비다네 아즈 마세 오즈르 수수즈 글로래 구양 때야다 담자 로 시디오네 직 탑시 직 된다라.
So for us for us to overcome these kind of anxiety, frustration, and so forth, it is important for us to open our minds in the sense that we need to adopt a larger perspective, a larger view of things. And if we are able to do that, then our initial sense of discomfort, anxiety, frustration is overcome naturally as a consequence of that. For example, if you break your hand, be grateful that you didn't break all the other limbs. And then if you lose a phone, be grateful that you didn't lose everything in that purse, in that bag, so forth. All of this comes from taking reality into account, cultivating a breadth of perspective, what we call in Buddhism. You open up your perspective to take and accept reality. Yes.
라페지 수제체.
Yeah.
I think this is the deepest thing you can ever, like, this is the deepest thing in our life. Take stuff that happens, like stuff that looks like it's bad, and use it to widen, like open your mind, just like she said. It's amazing.
The but things have should also 저기 라운드 땅나 직수술라 미가 직 두가로지 추나스라 텔라 로자 전부 지내라 삼무쿠양 못땅 디땅 토나스라 아니 당본에 직 낭다시난 디줄라도 도스.
네. 네. 그래서 단다 수제이라.
So let us stop here.